Couple minutes after 7 o'clock, 7:02. Good morning. Welcome to the show. Look what we found wandering out in the hallway. Matt Morgan is here.
Matt Morgan, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. On the day before the primary, we're getting after it here. I mean, it's go time for you, right? How do you feel about where your campaign is going before tomorrow?
I feel real good. And I want to thank you all for having me. Anytime we've ever done any type of interview in the past, whether it was about in-state tuition or
Right.
legislative districts or transportation, I've always been on a phone interview.
Yeah.
So I've
And
never
now
been in studio. This is really cool.
this is where the magic
Thank
happens.
you.
Yes, this is where it all happens.
Thank you for having me.
You're
For
welcome.
those who don't know, you are running for 29A, is that correct? That's
Yes.
the seat that Johnny Wood has vacated. And,
Or
you're-
will vacate.
Or
He's
will.
He's still in it.
It's making it sound like Old Yeller. We took him out back and put him down.
No.
No, that's not the case. But yes, he will vacate it, and you're running to fill that delegate seat. Is this your first go with politics on this level?
No, this is the same position I ran for back in 2010 against
2010.
Delegate Wood.
Okay.
And it's the closest state level race in the state. When it was all said and done, I beat him on election day, lost in early voting absentee ballots, 283 votes. We were shy.
So you don't like early voting, or you do?
Depends on how it turns out this time.
I tell you what, we didn't have a real good strategy for early voting last time because it was the first crack at it. I think early voting, personally, it is too long. I think it's if you're going to expand it, maybe the weekend before we actually vote would be more economical. Because the last day, there was a lot of people. There was almost as many people on the last day that there was the previous 6.
Right.
Now, what aside from politics, just so folks can get to know you, what do you do for a living, and why have you decided to get into politics?
Well, I'm professionally I'm an IT nerd for the College of Southern Maryland.
Good.
Sweet.
And I sell real estate part-time for O'Brien Realty.
So something had to see. There was some kind of thing that made you say, you know what, I got to get involved here. What was that, and why
What
are
was
you
the
doing
trigger
it?
to
Well,
your
originally it was a bunch of legislation back in 2009 that actually dealt with real estate and foreclosures, and you could see the market turning really, really
Oh, yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
And I was at the healthcare summit with Steny Hoyer up at North Point High School back in 2009.
We were there as well, yeah.
Yeah, where he made a comment. He was like, I believe it was like 460 calls against it to every one that was for it, but I'm still going to vote for it anyway. And that kind of prompted me to actually go do something.
Well, so what is it that you want to do? If you let's assume you win, what are everybody has 100 things they'd like to do, but realistically, you have to have a short list of things you'd like to accomplish.
We need to get the economy better.
Okay.
And that is the focal point of my campaign.
Jobs in Maryland.
Jobs, taxes, business creation. There's 3,400 less businesses than there was 4 years ago when I ran last time.
3,400
And
hold
that's-
on a second. 3,400 less businesses than when you ran in 2010.
Yes, and that's by SDAT records. That's their own records.
So, boy, if if everybody has, let's say they even have 4 employees, that's a lot of people that don't have jobs.
Well, government always talks about creating jobs. And, I mean, government can create jobs anytime they want. They can pay people to dig holes and fill them back up again
Sure.
or some other meaningless task like that. But really, to create jobs, you need to do it in the private sector, and businesses create jobs. So we have to have a competitive tax policy, especially with neighboring states.
Hear a lot of people saying that. A lot of folks have come through the studio and said, we got to redo something with these taxes, and it sounds great, but I don't. And listen, maybe I'm a defeatist. I don't know how you get Annapolis to stop doing what they clearly love to do, which is tax the bejesus out of us. How do you do that?
Well, I mean, if it gives you hope, look at the state of Wisconsin. I mean, that's physical proof of fiscal common sense ideas, surviving in a blue state.
Yeah, but Matt, they also they had people run out, like delegates run out of the state of Wisconsin so they wouldn't vote. They had people shut down the state house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I
they sure did. They ran away and hid out in Chicago, right?
Well,
Right.
didn't the sheriff had to go and bring back
The state senators to make them vote on legislation that's now proven to be beneficial. So, the fight is going to be hard. Hopefully it'll be clean. But, Maryland's worth fighting for. And the one thing I think we can do for the state is, we're not going to get a big tax package through. We're not going to have a comprehensive tax reform. But I've watched over the last 10 years or so where Democrats, or the status quo really, has passed smaller pieces of legislation. They've nickeled and dimed us to death. and it's we should be able to do the same.
Right. Okay. Now I'm not
We're
going
gonna have to take it back a nickel at a time.
I'm not going to talk opponents by name, and I would hope
Okay.
that you would not as well.
Okay.
However, I had one of the local papers here, and there is a letter to the editor in here that is scathing against you. Okay? Let me just a couple of clips. Matt Morgan has taken the low road, playing O'Malley-style politics with the true facts.
What does that mean?
Dirty politics, on and on. I mean, what's that about?
What are you up to, Matt Morgan?
I mean,
Well, I think that means I'm winning.
O'Malley-style politics.
Now, what is that a reference to?
That is in reference of an ad I ran, 1 3-bullet ad. That particular newspaper that you're holding there, I've been getting hit at for months as far as moving, negative advertising. So
Moving.
Let's
we
talk
decided to
about-
hit back a little bit with
okay.
a documented and sourced and factually correct ad that generated that. And I just think that's about a bullying tactic, and I don't like bullies.
What are you talking about moving? Let's address that. What's that about?
Well, I was on your website, and there is a huge yellow graphic here that says residency proof.
Was there
Yes.
some issue as to whether or not you would what that you just got here?
Were you born in Kenya? What's the story?
What's the story? Where's your birth certificate?
I wasn't born in Kenya. I was born right there in La Plata.
Okay.
But
La
I've
Plata
heard this.
Hospital. I've never lived more than 12 miles from St. Mary's my entire life.
But I've heard this. I've heard this controversy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I pay attention once in a while when people are running, and it's about you lived in Hughesville, which was not in 29A.
Well, no, it is. Hughesville and Benedict is still part of 29A. Yeah, Delegate Johnny Wood is still the delegate for that area now. I've lived in the district for a better part of 2 decades. And
so you're not from around here.
Well, I am from around here in La Plata. After a tight election in 2010, and really I think it was the petitioning drives against in-state tuition, we stopped that. And that was a big piece of legislation. Even though it didn't pass in the state, it won down here. It was the first time we got a ballot initiative on the ballot in 20-some years in Maryland. That kind of sealed my faith in status quo, went ahead and drew me out of the district. And
Let me ask you something. As somebody who is relatively new to the politic game, and I'm not in it all, but I am in the public eye, and people say nasty stuff occasionally, and I can address it rapidly. Is it a little surprising to you when you pick up a paper or you turn on the radio or something and you hear something about yourself that you know is just categorically not true or is misrepresenting you? What is that?
What's that like?
What's that like, and how nasty is that?
it's pretty nasty, and it's hard to address because without a radio station or a mass news outlet, it's hard to combat that.
Politics is a tough game, man.
But it shouldn't be, because this is the reason why good people don't run for office.
That's what I always say. Yeah, good people don't. Most of the people we have to choose from, I'm not voicing this at you, but like let's say at a presidential level, that's the biggest election there is. I don't think we're getting the best of the best applying for that job.
You're not. You're not. And that's the reason why things are the way they are.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want a smarter government, and elect smarter people.
But they're too smart to run.
That's what it is. That's what people said about Colin Powell for years. So let me ask you this about some of the big issues that are going on. And I've asked some other folks who have been in here. And one is the whole veto by the governor for the holding off, waiting for the MIT. I guess it's just a survey of the whole windmill farm out on the Eastern Shore. And when you have the entire Southern Maryland delegation and most of the General Assembly that agreed with the Southern Maryland delegation, and then you have a governor who vetoes legislation that everybody is pretty much behind, how are you, if elected a delegate, going to deal with that? Because we haven't had a special session on that. That hasn't happened. I mean, what are you going to do to help Southern Marylanders and the people in your district combat maybe possibly a governor who is going to go against what this whole district wants?
Well, hopefully we won't have a governor that will do that this time around, because that bill did pass the legislature, General Assembly, and it was stopped. What was ironic about that bill was his comments afterwards. Malley said that, the main threat to Pax River was actually global warming, which
Right.
is kind of shocking because they're building the the windmills over there in Somerset, and that would be underwater before us.
That's true. Good point, right?
It's so crazy. I mean, this whole thing is just so ridiculous. But yeah, you're spot on correct. I don't understand why they're so adamant pushing this thing through without the study. It seems like a no-brainer. Do the study and then figure out what you want to do.
I think that he's just trying to pad his resume. This is a lot like the gun legislation that passed a few years ago. That really didn't make people any safer.
Of course not.
I mean, actually, it probably made Maryland one of the most highest armed societies per capita, and because people I knew that had 2 or 3 guns now have 12.
Sure.
And this really was nothing more than for him to stand to the left of Mario Cuomo when he runs
Now,
for governor or president.
What about, not that this would be something maybe that would fall in your purview per se, but I just saw it again this morning, so why it's on the top of my mind. One of the candidates that's running for governor apparently is going to fund everything through pot. That's the answer to all of our problems. We just need to get more people more stoned. What do you think about that?
I'm absolutely against that. I have no interest in making Maryland the largest drug pusher on the East Coast. And that's a common denominator with drug dealers. They tend to make a lot of money.
Yeah, they do. They sure do.
Well, you would think the gamblers make a lot of money in casinos, too. How do you feel about the whole casino idea and funding schools, the elderly, off of the money at casinos? Because it is a sin tax, more or less.
It is a sin tax, and I'm a pro-gambling guy, but it should be done responsibly. I voted against the casino up in National Harbor.
But
and the
you're
reason
a pro-gambling guy?
Well, it was the way that bill was crafted and went down. I don't see how they get a no-bid contract for, what is it, $700 million, and jam through the legislature.
The casinos don't bother me because I'm not somebody who really gambles. But
what bothered me about that piece of legislation, T, was, the governor sold it to us as if we passed this, schools would be funding.
Right.
Well, that's exactly where I'm going with that.
And they didn't put a shovel in the ground before they passed that the gas tax increase, 4 months later.
I see these casinos popping up all over the place, and I don't care. It's okay. I don't know if you want to go gamble. It's okay with me. But I don't see isn't there supposed to be a huge influx? The teachers' retirements, apparently they're not funded. Gas taxes continue to go up. I'm okay with them building these casinos, but where's the other side of this? When are we going to see these things turning around?
Well, we've had this discussion many times before. I mean, this is the same discussion we had with lottery, same discussion we had with raising the tax on tobacco and alcohol. And the money just needs to be constitutionally lockboxed. The problem is it goes to
like the transportation fund.
They increase taxes for the best reasons, and then they turn around and misuse the money for it.
Yeah.
Well, it's the classic case of the governor taking the $200,000 or $200 million out or whatever it was out of the teachers' pensions. You got to answer to the teachers for that.
I don't think people understand how bad that legislation was and how hypocritical it was. Back in 2011, they redid the state employee pension unit.
Right.
And they basically increased, the mandatory contribution on teachers, $42 on average in St. Mary's County goes to that pension fund.
Okay.
And they redirected that money in 2011, $120 million with a one-time transfer. Well, now we've did it this year, $200 million. We're slated to do another $200 million next year.
It's shameful.
Well, think about it.
It's unsustainable. It's unsustainable.
Think about it. The state of Maryland took that responsibility on themselves, and then they transferred 50% of the responsibility for that pension onto the counties, and now they've transferred the money 3 of the last 5 years.
Where does that money go?
It goes over to the general fund,
and then it's just gone.
It's the black hole of the budget
process. Why aren't the teachers shouting louder about this? Because maybe I'm missing it, but I don't hear teachers saying, "You're stealing our pension."
Well, they're not saying you're stealing our pension. The governor's they have a bigger voice than what we have. I don't think a lot of people, it's hard to understand. The one thing that, they're just not.
They're going to find out.
Well, the thing I'm worried about with, the some of the responsibility being handed off to the counties,
property
you're,
taxes.
Teachers, you're
Yeah,
I
hello.
got news for you. Your pensions are unsustainable. For state workers, your pensions are unsustainable
Well,
if this continues to happen.
This is a big deal, not only for the teachers, but the taxpayers, too.
Of
Because
course.
this fund will never go bankrupt. The taxpayers will end up bailing it out.
Until the taxpayers say no. I mean, it can happen.
Well,
mean,
I think the
people can-
governor, if you go through their Budget Reconcile Act, they're saying that pension will be 80% funded within 10 years. And you look at the chart, and it's like, well, it's assuming that you're going to get the same rate of return that you've gotten in the last year when the market went from, 13.2 to 14, 14.5.
Now it's almost at 17.
Yeah, I've never seen the stock market move consistently for a 10-year period.
I was saying the other day, and this is real. I'm really out of my wheelhouse here, but I've never seen the stock market at a higher point, and yet so many people be unemployed. I don't know what is going on, and I know there's some financial historian out there that probably
That guy from Virginia who
Yeah.
just beat Cantor, he can tell you, isn't he an economics
But
professor?
the stock market
Yeah,
is
that's
just
right.
shooting through the roof. Yet there's no jobs being created, or at least not enough.
Well, you got to consider that you work locally. Stock markets, traded in New York, but everyone is invested in that.
Right.
The local jobs, there's actually, they released a report, about a week ago, that Maryland had 0% growth in 2013.
Right.
0% growth.
And that's, we can't keep using, you're not going to solve the problems with the same logic that created the problems in the first place.
All right. Well, listen, we got a couple more minutes here. What message do you want to get out to the voters as we're right on the eve of voting?
Yeah, what are your big issues? I mean, if you make it, a lot of people are saying, when I make it to Annapolis, what are one of the first, what are you looking at changing and making different?
We want to get some tax relief to job creators, and I think you do that one by corporate income tax cutting and making it more competitive, but also for small businesses, because that's the driving force of
Bread
our
and butter.
economy. Yeah, we want to back off some taxes for job creators, as far as LLCs, S corps, small business pass-through entities.
Aren't you going to lose revenue?
Well, I mean, if the whole lose revenue argument, that's the reason why they phase stuff in. If you phase it in over a 3-year period, if revenue is not coming in, you can always make adjustments.
Right.
But really, you have to control spending in the state of Maryland.
Yeah, that's a common theme.
Well, a lot of people don't know. I mean, they act like the problem in spending occurred with the recession or it's Bush's fault. Maryland's actually spent more money than it's brought in the last 11 of 13 years. So this problem is
We've
dated.
spent more than we brought in for 11 of the last 13 years.
And what that does is trigger a tax increase or a rating of a special fund the following year, because
Which is
we do
what they're
have
doing.
we do have a balanced budget amendment. So when you spend more money than you have to take it from your savings account or some other dedicated
Which
fund.
they've been doing.
Yes.
Oh, my
Okay.
goodness.
Well,
Hey,
listen.
One more question before we leave to lighten it up a little bit. I'm asking everybody because T and I argue. You know what the question is?
I've heard this question before.
Okay, all right. Well, let me ask you, if you have yourself a nice ham sandwich there, what are you putting on it? Are you putting mayonnaise on it, or are you putting Miracle Whip on it?
Honestly, I will put mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise on it. See?
I don't know what the hell's going on in this country.
Nobody has said Miracle Whip
we're
yet,
watching
T.
soccer and nobody's using Miracle Whip.
No one's winning. What
No
was
one's
up with
winning.
that?
No one's winning.
They stopped the game yesterday, and we're like, "What? We're no shootout? No."
Yeah.
I mean,
Play to win.
we didn't know what was going on. I was like, "Why are they taking their shirts off?"
I know. It's
Well,
ridiculous.
I think it's because we're not big soccer fans. Are you a big soccer fan?
No, my daughter plays soccer, but little league they don't.
Yeah.
do
Right,
that.
but with when you're talking about USA, hell, I'll watch curling to see the USA team win. It doesn't matter what the sport is. I want the USA to win. But when you're watching it and you kind of don't know the sport, you're like, why? I don't understand why it's a tie. Yeah,
well,
let's have a
especially
shootout.
if I've given you, which I didn't, but let's say that I did. If I've given you an hour and a half of my time, somebody needs to lose, and somebody needs to win.
I was like, "Wow, that's a shame that they hit a goal in the last." Well, like, so how did you not know that the game was over?
Right, and then they just take their shirts off and okay,
It's
see
like,
ya.
is that it? We were arguing back and forth. Where my family, we watched it.
Well, maybe you should have had your daughter in there to explain the rules
maybe
of soccer.
I had to
the
take
little-
advice from a 9-year-old.
She'll tell you all about it. Well, thank you, Matt.
you I'm sure have a website where people can learn more about you.
Sure. Go to the polls tomorrow. Vote for Matt Morgan, and if you need any more information from me, voteformattmorgan.com.
Okay?
That's easy. Vote for
Check it out,
MattMorgan.com.
learn about it, get out there and do your civic duty.
Hey, thank you all for having me
Thank
again.
you so
It's
much
our
for
pleasure.
coming in.
7:22. Let's get a check of traffic, see what's happening on the roads.